Youngpreneurs Podcast, episode number 127 with your host, Victor Ahi-Penny. What's up, world? Another day, another podcast, and today I have got Daniel Ameduri, and he is from Future Money Trends, and he has done some pretty amazing stuff when it comes to financial forecasting and helping others build their financial future. And he predicted the real estate crash, the NASDAQ, and so many other financial trends that he's now turned it into a newsletter and a subscription newsletter. And we talk about how he's gone about that, how he found the knack to be able to do that, and what are some of the common mistakes that investors and people looking at markets are doing. It's really, really awesome episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it, as I love looking at trends and what makes them go tick, and I would highly suggest checking out some of Daniel's resources. You can check them all out. We've got them linked at passiveincomeyoung.com/EP127. And if you are looking for any resources to get your own online business started, then you can check that out at passiveincomeyoung.com as well. If you like the episode, then please leave us a rating and a review over at iTunes. It'd be awesomely appreciated, and I would also love it if you could type in Young Entrepreneurs Mastermind if you're an absolute go-getter and action taker, and join our free online community, our tribe of youngpreneurs who are smashing it in Facebook. We are all in there supporting each other, bouncing ideas, brainstorming, and supporting. So it's a super cool group, and I'd love it for you to be involved. In the meantime, guys, keep living life on your own terms.
You're listening to the Youngpreneurs Podcast, the #1 resource online for under 35-year-olds, where we chat twice a week to the most inspiring entrepreneurs in the world. We have it all. If you're looking for inspiration, guidance, or actionable tips to help you transition from that job into a business, or if you're ready to take that business to a whole new level, then this is the place to be. Get ready to live life on your own terms. Youngpreneurs, what's happening? I hope everyone is having an awesome week. I certainly am, and I've got a guest, and it's our first kind of guest who's really focused in that financial space and has had some success. I'm going to start again, Daniel.
Go ahead.
How do you start say your last name?
It's Ameduri.
Ameduri?
Ameduri.
Okay, cool.
You got it.
Cool. All right. Youngpreneurs, what is happening? I hope you're having an amazing week, and I certainly am. I've got an amazing guest on here today who's had some success in the financial space, which we haven't really been able to delve into or had any guests who have really kicked some goals in here, and I know we're in for a treat. This episode, I've got Daniel Ameduri from Future Money Trends, and he's co-founder of Future Money Trends, the Future Money Trends letter, FMT Advisory, and the Wealth Research Group, and he's a self-made multi-millionaire and full-time fact finder, which I love that intro that he gave me, because finding the facts when it comes to any type of investing or business is super important. Turning those opinions into facts is going to save you a lot of money in the future. So welcome to the show, Daniel.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. Thank you for that warm introduction.
It's my pleasure. I'd love to know, for everybody out there, I mean, self-made multimillionaire is a pretty cool thing to be able to have next to your name. But where did it all begin? Like, what was growing up like for you? Where did, I guess, the investing side of things, when did that come into it? Were you always destined down that road?
Sure. Well, I was raised in a middle class, right down the middle type of household. We went to public school. My father worked from 5 a.m. to about 4:30 p.m. every day as a machinist, and my mother stayed at home. And there was really no entrepreneur or push. However, it was always in me. Since I was 5 years old, my mother has all kinds of stories about me trying to go door to door selling cookies, or having garage sales on Saturday morning, and her waking up to having to drag everything back in the house because I was trying to sell it and make some money. And even one time when I was in fourth grade getting in trouble, the teacher was selling pencils to people who forgot their pencils for 10 cents So I kept having my mom bring me more pencils, and she was wondering where all these pencils were going. Well, I was undercutting the teacher by selling the pencils for 9 cents. And she ended up having to come out of the school and talk to them. But, for me, this started, I always knew that I wanted to have a business. I was always fascinated with money and never materialism, which I've been very lucky that I was never fascinated or passionate about materialism at all. But I was always fascinated and very interested in money since as far as back as I can remember. And even when I was 13 years old, I would go to Barnes & Noble's after going to school, and I would literally not do any of my homework and go to Barnes & Noble's, and I would sit in the personal finance section for 2 hours, and then I would go home and probably still not do my homework and just watch TV. But I was always fascinated with this entire, personal finance, doing something different. I knew there had to be another way. But it did take some time to kind of figure out a way forward.
And so reading all those books, did it change your mindset quite early to, were they just about what the markets were doing? Or, I mean, I know a lot of people, maybe not necessarily the younger generation, who are potentially inspired, or a lot of the guests we get on are inspired by the 4-hour work week. But I know, a lot of people are also inspired by, say, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Were those the kind of books? Was it here's a different path, or was it more? Were you reading more the books around this is how markets react to different things, and this is what you should be looking at?
I was reading everything I could get my hands on. I had a mentor in my life who was kind of steering me towards real estate. But I would say my probably the most impactful book. Now, it's not the most educational book, but I would say a book that I can literally point to, and I have pointed to for decades now, where it really brought clarity to my thinking. And without a doubt, it is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and his other book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. And so even a more important point on cash flow quadrant. And I think that's where I had, where you're like, I don't know about 401ks. They seem like it's not for me. I don't know about working. It seems like that's not for me. I don't know about running a business and just being self-employed. And then you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant, and it just, it's not the end all book, really. It's a very introductory book. However, it did categorize and organize and give a boy, at the time I was probably 15 when I read it, and it gave me clarity of, okay, now I see, here is a roadmap. At least in a very broad, sense, here's a roadmap. And that was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's probably the most influential book in my life.
It was interesting because I had a property mentor as well, and he was very much, I guess, in that vein of, create multiple streams of income and the like. And I'd read his book first, and that kind of started my journey. And then I started reading all these other books. And it wasn't until probably a year or two into kind of trying to divulge as much information as I could that I came across Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And like you say, it's an introductory book. And I imagine if I'd read it a year earlier, it would have had a completely different impact on my mindset and my space. It just happened that I'd gone on this other journey and at the place that I'd come to. But I mean, for anyone out there who hasn't read it, it is an amazing book to just open your mind to opportunity and ways to do it.
Sure. And I just wanted to say one thing that I thought was interesting about that book. So when I was 15, I read it the one time, and then it stuck with me. And I just remember always thinking about everything I read in that book. And then, I would say probably 2 years ago, I read it again for my second time. And I remember reading it and going, man, this is really, really simple stuff. I'm surprised that this book impressed me so much. But I think it's because I had kind of followed that and just kind of went off and went, basically everything Robert Kiyosaki recommended, I followed. And, I guess looking back, it's simple now. But at the time, where, you're only told, as he would write in his book, to go to school, get a good job, have the company take care of you, focus on benefits. Those are a lot of things I would hear in my household, right? And a lot of people, you need to find a good job that has great benefits. And that's the mindset. And then once I completely let that go as a teenager and went down the road Robert Kiyosaki did, looking back, it's very easy to connect the dots. But that book, anybody who hasn't read it, I think everybody should read that. Anyone who wants to improve their life financially, I would definitely recommend that book first.
And talk about that journey after school. So, I mean, that's a lot of people who listen to the show. I mean, there's the proportion who haven't gone down the get a job or a trade or go to university, but a lot of people are in that cycle at the moment. Did you go down that cycle? Did you go to university? Or, I mean, obviously following the Kiyosaki side of things, what were your next steps when you finished high school?
Well, prior to finishing high school, I was in a home ec class, and it was like 2 guys and then 28 girls.
Yeah,
and
good odds.
So I was a smart kid for at least I had that right. And I remember, I'll never forget this. I tell this story all the time because it did have an impact on my life. But the teacher had this chart, and she passed out all these papers, and this counselor came in to talk to us about college. And she showed us this chart. Now, this goes back to the 90s, so obviously these numbers are way out of line now. But it showed that the high school graduates would make $25,000 a year, and the college graduates would make $35,000 a year. And I remember looking at that. I remember that day so clearly in my head. And I remember going, there's no way I'm going to college, because I might as well just go this other way, because it ain't that far off. So I from the very beginning, there's no way I wanted to go to college. I ended up getting in trouble years later because I was telling my girlfriend that I was going to college because it was very important to her parents. She's now my wife. They're now my in-laws. But I would tell them I was going to college, but really I was just going to Barnes & Nobles for 4 hours. But once I graduated high school, the very first thing I did is I went out and tried to buy some real estate, literally at 18 years old. And luckily, I was ignorant that you could not do that, or you were not supposed to be able to do that, because I just went out and did it. I found a seller finance property in California, again, something you're not supposed to be able to find, and I went out and did the deal. And once that deal was closed, I immediately talked to the broker and I said, "Hey, I have a great idea. Why don't I buy a house, and with the commission, you can loan me the money in advance and give me the down payment." The broker said, "It sounds crazy, but I'm open to it." And she did it. And that's how I got my second property with creative financing. And I've only done a handful of conventional loans. Almost every single property I've ever purchased has been through the non-conventional means. And it's because I like the creative side of things. I like being able to negotiate everything from the terms to the interest rate, everything. And I've never been one. I despise and hate paperwork. So if anybody's ever applied for a mortgage, it's an absolute nightmare. If you buy a seller finance property, you got the down payment, you got cash, or even you don't even need cash, but you can get it done. So I did real estate. Things were great. I was making money by 22.
What year was this around?
This is early 2000s.
Yep.
So very young, making money. And then in 2007, I thought that the real estate market was going to blow up. I told everybody it was going to blow up. That's kind of how the whole YouTube channel and this other path happened. But at the same point in time, I do want to let the audience know, I went out and I purchased 10 properties in 2007 because I felt that I had an edge and that I was going to make as much money as I could before it blew up. Even though I was telling everybody to get out, publicly and privately, I was all in, and I completely blew up. And I had several foreclosures. I had so many foreclosures that one of the houses, people just took over the property, and I didn't even want to pay the $1,500 to have an attorney evict them. That's the law in California. If a squatter just takes over the house. So in 2007, 2008, they happened to be really amazing years because I publicly on YouTube was right on my calls of Lehman Brothers and the Dow Jones. All of those things were very accurate. However, I always have this saying now, there's nothing worse than being right and not making money. And in my case, there's nothing worse than being right and then losing all your money.
Yeah, that must hurt. What went through your head in that time?
I felt defeated for many years. I felt so defeated that I did not think I could be an entrepreneur again, and that I felt like I had to go the safe route. And I ended up getting a job in a grocery chain because I felt that there was just no way I could do it. Yet I still had this hobby on YouTube that I was making money, but I felt very defeated. I felt like that there was no comeback for me, and I felt this way for many years. And even, I'd get a little good news when Google took over YouTube. This is around 2009, 2008. So this all happens in a short time frame, I guess. But Google contacts me, and Google says, hey, we're going to do something called YouTube Partnership. Now it's mainstream, but before that, no one had ever been paid for these videos with ads. So I was one of the very first Google partners, and then another group, a wealth letter, called me and said, hey, we want you to be the spokesperson and just do one video a week. And by the way, I did these videos, probably 300 of them with no editing, all of them 20 to 30 minutes, zero editing, just spoke in front of a $20 Logitech webcam. And again, this is my hobby, but all of a sudden between this organization and Google, I was now making more money than my job. So now here I am. I didn't even set out to make this my business or make money from it, but my hobby turned into my sole source of income at that point.
The accidental re-entrepreneur.
Yes, and after I'd kind of thrown in the towel, and then really I didn't start Future Money Trends until my wife, she really wanted to quit her job, and she was like, I think you can make a lot of money with your own newsletter. You obviously have a following on YouTube. You're obviously helping other people advertise their content via Google or this other newsletter. And so after months and months and months of her telling me to do it, in July of 2010, I finally launched Future Money Trends with my partner, who's my cousin. Although I do consider my wife the true founder because she's really the one who pushed it to happen. And then we built Future Money Trends, and we didn't focus on anything that had to do with money for the first 6 months. We knew we had to build an amazing letter before we brought in one advertisement. And so literally we just poured out our heart and soul into building this letter for 6 months.
That's awesome. It's an amazing kind of journey from the top back down and all the way through. But where did I've watched The Big Short, so like the whole time you were talking, I was like, this reminds me of watching that movie. I don't know if you've watched it, but it's, I was thinking, they were predicting it, no one was listening to them, and then everything went bang. But there was a few extra $1 billion in some of their bank accounts at the end of it. Where did your skill, was it from all the reading, or do you feel you have a knack for picking up on trends that people necessarily don't, or is it just the time that you put into it for finding these future trends?
I think for the real estate from, where I had bought literally where the bubble had started, in 2000, I think I got very lucky, and that's probably what really led to my crash in 2007 was that I confused an amazing epic bull market in Southern California for brains. And so that blew up. I did, however, was able to see that there was something fundamentally wrong with the real estate market. My wife, who was a Applebee's waitress making $1,200 a month, going to college full time, was able to buy 3 houses at the same time in 2005, 2006. Other people I was speaking with couldn't make their mortgage payments. So I did know something was wrong. And that's where I was able to make those forecasts. I did know the banks because I was friends with a lot of mortgage brokers. I knew who had all the loans. So if you look at actually my very first video on March 18th, 2008, this is 6 months before Lehman Brothers collapsed. In that video, I literally say, watch Lehman Brothers, watch Washington Mutual, and watch AIG. These are the ones that are going to blow up. And and then in that same very first video, when the Dow was at about 12,000, which was about near its high at the time, I also say that I thought the Dow was going to go to about 8,000. Now those were just numbers I put out because I was looking at a serious crash. When it comes to like the gold and silver junior market, I was early on this, but I knew the fundamentals were there for this cyclically to have a massive rally. and to do very well because of the underlying fundamentals of the U.S. economy and what's going on with central banks. So in 2016, I'm not sure if any other newsletter has done as well as Future Money Trends when it comes to these small micro-cap picks in the junior mining resource sector, which is very, very difficult to make money. But, it's not so much as being able to forecast trends. It's being able to kind of, I do a lot of research. I find out what I believe is going to happen. But just like that movie, The Big Short, it's very, very difficult to time. And one thing I've learned from a man named Rick Rule, who I respect highly, is you cannot confuse inevitability with imminent. And I think that's what almost all investors will get caught up into. You'll look at the numbers and you'll go, this is absolutely going to happen. But you know what? It might absolutely happen in the next 20 years, not the next 20 days.
Yeah, that's difficult. That's hard to, I guess, plan as well. Like, your future off the back of that, and as an art, like, a lot of. I'm sitting here in Brisbane, and you look out. I live in an apartment complex, and there's probably, we lived in an apartment when we first moved here, and we were the only new complex in a kilometre radius. Now, in a 500-metre radius from that place now, in the last 6 to 12 months, has been the finished completion of 11 new, medium-sized apartment complexes. And when we first moved in there, you would have never been able to pick that. I mean, you would have if you knew that the land was selling, but it was all selling, and nobody knew about it. Then all of a sudden, all around Brisbane, there's all of these new apartment complexes that a lot of people who aren't savvy investors are going to go in there and buy because they hear all these massive tax benefits and they think that it's, their apartment's going to sell. But in the next 6 to 12 months, there's going to be so many new apartment complexes on the market that there's going to be a lot of people left with hanging high and dry because they can't get tenants in, or the property prices drop straight away because there's this influx of apartments. So I mean, I'm sure it's the same in any industry, and I mean, there's things that you being savvy and being able to look at those things better, at least going to be able to put the favoritism more on your side than the person who hears it from their cab driver or their Uber driver on a ride to the airport, some insider information.
Sure, and you notice when when you're focused on surrounding yourself with people, and you're in contact constantly with the people in whatever the industry that you're trying to excel in or business. Of course, you'll have you'll have the insider access, and but one thing, I mean, the news and all this stuff. One thing I've learned is to not let it influence what you're doing, especially the day-to-day stuff. Whether you're building a business or investing. You attach yourself to the right people. You work hard every day. Focus on what you're doing. Just like if when I have a 6-year-old who has a Lego set. He sits there and builds, and that's how a business is. That's how your personal finance goal is. You just build and build and build. Don't worry about what's going on in the real estate market. If you're buying properties that cash flow because you want cash flow, then it does not matter. You just focus on the right deals, and you be unreasonable. Whether it's buying a property or buying a stock at the right price or setting up your business, be unreasonable. Don't accept what everybody else accepts. Don't accept the asking price. You'll have your price. You'll have what works for you. And if it doesn't work for you, then you keep moving on.
The deal of the century comes around every other week. So what is it that you now do for, I guess, do you have clients that are working for, like, under you that you service? What's your biggest thing that takes up the majority of your time now?
It's all writing and researching for the Future Money Trends letter. So we have a paid letter and we have a free letter. Basically, we focus on personal finance for the new economy, and that's our mission and our purpose. We believe that the corporate jobs, it's not even anything that we believe anymore. Now it's happening in real time, that everybody's going to become an independent contractor, an individual business. Anyway, the idea that you're going to sit with a company for 30 years, it's evaporating quickly. the idea that you can graduate college and get the great job that you went to college to qualify for, that is seriously crumbling, at least here in the United States. Obviously, I'm not an expert or anything on every region of the world or even the United States, but overall, looking at the macroeconomic trends, I believe we are entering a new phase in the economy, and people definitely need to look in the mirror for their answers. No government, no company, they're not going to help you. You need to go back to being a hunter. And that's when when you're looking for your income, whether it's multiple streams or building a business, your best answers are going to be in the mirror. And that's what we encourage people to really focus on: their own personal education, on what they're passionate about, monetizing their passion, and focusing on multiple streams of income. So it's personal finance for the new economy. We don't believe people should just throw money in 401ks and mutual funds. 401ks are retirement for the U.S. citizens. But we don't believe that people should just do anything blindly. You have to set out your own course, chart your own course.
So what gets you excited for your own personal investing? Is it stock market, property, or is it just finding the best and highest use of your money?
You know, at this point in my life, I would say the biggest thrill I have is definitely making money with my subscribers or seeing them make money. So every day I get emails and, people let me know how they did, whether they started their own business that we had encouraged them, because we're very personal. People can ask us questions. We'll do what we can to help them. Obviously, most of the questions are personal finance related. Then the second group of questions are about businesses, and then the third group is people ask us about stocks. We use stocks for very specific objectives, but we're not a stock newsletter. We don't believe. In fact, I often say in the newsletter, most people shouldn't even own stocks. Really, they're not designed for the average person to make money. It's a big machine where there's tons of commissions and trading service fees, and the insiders, they're getting their shares for pennies on the dollar, and then everybody else is getting them for 100 times that. It's not a great place to be unless we are going in there for very specific reasons. Otherwise, we're not big into the stock market. We're big into our favorite ticker symbol is YOU. So most of our questions come from that, and that is. So you asked me as far as my own money. When I started making a lot of money, I built a financial moat of protection, and I like sharing that with people, teaching them to build their own protection. Part of that is not just throwing all your money and reallocating it to Wall Street. So many people have the sense that when they get money, they need to redistribute the capital. And of course, coincidentally, we've all been conditioned to redistribute the capital to people with commissions. But really, a lot of times just having cash in the bank is great. If you've got a great cash flow business, you do well in real estate, you do well in your business, you do well in your job. You bring your A game every day and you over deliver for your clients, or you over deliver for your boss. Cause really that is your value. That's how you have unlimited cash. Can you over deliver? Cause everybody needs value, but the people who over deliver, those are the people who are going to make the most income, as well as be the most secure. That is true financial security, when you can over deliver for people.
And that's huge. So let's delve into, I guess, a few actionable tips. What are the three things from a personal finance point of view that you either see continually done poorly by people, generally due, I guess, imagine through ignorance and not knowing, or two or three tips that you think our listeners might be able to benefit from to start making some quick wins after listening to this?
I would say the first one is we've all been conditioned to finance things, whether it's your home or your car or get a credit card. We've even been taught that a credit score is like equivalent to an asset. So I would say that's the first thing people should mentally overcome, is financing your car should not be normal. Financing a home, I put an asterisk on that because the homes are so much because of the 3-decade loans here. And then financing anything on a credit card.
And your homes aren't necessarily an investment.
Absolutely, no.
Investment.
Yeah, there's no income, right? So, financing things, it's not normal. That would be the first thing. And then the second thing would be savings. People are not saving. For whatever reason, the savings rate continues to collapse, year after year. And, you've got low interest rates and people are like, well, there's no reason to keep the money in the bank. So let's just buy some dividend paying stock, even though the stocks are highly inflated. We like saving and we use different private insurance vehicles. I don't know if they're available to Australians. We use whole life insurance. These are companies that have been around for hundreds of years. They pay a 5% dividend. So we use that for a compounding effect. We also use companies like a lending club where there's peer-to-peer investing. These banks are investing billions of dollars into these companies, and we're also investing in them. We're getting great returns. We also but we save in a little bit of precious metals, gold and silver, not necessarily a lot, maybe 5-10% of your portfolio, just because we also want to have some sort of hedge against the currency manipulators all around us. So saving money is the second thing, to make it a habit, to make it a lifestyle. And I'll tell you, the more money you save, the more fun it becomes, and it kind of snowballs. And it feels really, really, really good when you know that I've got a pile of cash, I've got some gold and silver, I've got some of these very safe, conservative income investments. It's not as sexy as flipping a house or buying a little stock and then flipping it for 1,000%. But I'll tell you, you will sleep great at night knowing that you have a pile of cash somewhere. And so savings is extremely important. And then the third actionable tip I would say was first off, if you're in a job right now and you think that you can't get out of that job, consider your boss or your company that you work for. They could potentially be your very first client. And if you do that, you'll probably be saving them money. Because if somebody was my employee and I had to pay workers' compensation and health insurance and everything else that came with an employee, and then the employee that delivers great value to me said, hey, let me be my own business, you'll pay me 20% less, I would say deal. And the best part about that is now that frees that person up. They're all of a sudden working from home. Now they can reach out to other companies and also deliver value. So it's very easy to create a business within the job you're already doing. Although if you're happy with your job and you just like to do it, I would say in this economy, you really want to just focus on over-delivery. There's so many negative people around us, and people get caught up in that complaining all the time. Whether you're a job or a business owner or in anything you do, to shut the complaining out of your life, get rid of those people. I hate to say it like that, but just get them out of your life. Because you want to focus on delivering value to other people, and the more value you deliver to other people, the not only the more prosperity you'll have, but you'll have a very peaceful life, no stress, and of course, that gets into health and everything else. But basically, over delivery. You have to be focused, whether you have a job or a business. Personal finance, your biggest source of income is whatever you're doing actively to make money. So, so many people, they spend all their time focusing on the next possible real estate investment where they can make $100 a month, or the next stock yield where they make $50 a year. Meanwhile, they're making $4,000 or $5,000 from their job. That is the most important thing for your personal income right now. So make sure you bring your A game every day.
That's powerful. That's really good. And I mean, I love what you're saying. I think the old saying, if you want to make more money, help more people. And often, sometimes people forget that person can be you as well. By helping yourself with your own personal finance game, you can have more money put away to be able to follow something that you may be inkling you to be able to help more people. So, some super valuable tips. I just want to get our last couple of questions from you, more about you. What does a normal day, if there's such a thing, look like for you?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, look, I work from home. I have a 2-year-old, a 4-year, and a 6-year-old. So my day usually starts off. We always say we wake up when we're done sleeping. So unfortunately, I don't have one of those stories where I wake up at 5 o'clock, I go jogging and swimming and all
cold
this
showers
stuff. I don't jump into 57-degree water like Tony Robbins. Of course, now he's almost a billionaire, so maybe I should be jumping into some cold water. But we kind of just all wake up together. We do. My wife makes a French press coffee, and then we'll usually blueberries and some yogurt for breakfast with the kids, and then we start our day. The kids are homeschooled. I go into the home office, and I'll usually read and write for the first 2 hours. And then after I'm done reading and writing, I'll make a few phone calls, maybe some follow-ups, answer some subscriber questions, and then go back to reading and writing for the rest of the day.
Nice. And, I mean, I just added in an extra question here, but what are the fundamentals that you're trying to teach your kids via homeschooling?
A lot. But, we are trying to teach them to be able to go out and hunt by themselves. When I'm saying, like, go out and get their own income, business-wise. We want them to be business owners. However, I'm also a parent who the kids, whatever they want to do, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to pursue that with them and do everything we can to encourage them. So, look, our backup plan is that you'd have to get a job. So where everybody else wants to get the job and wants to work for 40 years, I consider that plan C, plan D. With our kids, we've never really taught them about getting a job or working for somebody else. We've always, as we're talking to them, what kind of business do they want to own? What do they want to build? What do they want to do in life? And we've also, let them know that we're very blessed to have this lifestyle. The other kids, they leave at 7 a.m. They come at 3:30 p.m. Same thing for the mommies and daddies who have to go to work. And we don't belittle that, but we let them know that this is a privilege, that, this is something that we have to cherish. And when it comes to other people who might want to homeschool their kids, look, I know this is, a lot of people think that, like, there's private school, public school, and then homeschool. Homeschool is not easy. It's time consuming for the parent. And, it is definitely a privilege because obviously you have to have the income to be able to have the kids at home. So we're very grateful. One thing that I can tell you that I would love to hear if people do this, because I've mentioned this a few times now, and people are telling me that they're doing it with their kids. Every single meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, every single meal starts off with what we are grateful for. So every day when we wake up, sit around the breakfast table, and we go around in a circle. What are you thankful for? And it can be something big. It can be something immediate. It can be something relevant to that day. We just go around the table and we always start off with what are we thankful for?
That's super cool. Final question. You're on your deathbed. You're 150 years old. You've had a good run. You're looking back. What is a successful life? What does it look like for you looking back, saying, "Hey, I think I've done fairly well"?
I want to be a great dad. I want to be a great husband, and I want to have spent all my money on experiences with the people I love.
It's powerful, and I love that. So I just want to thank you and welcome you to the Youngpreneurs family. Really appreciate the knowledge and your story that you've been able to give to our listeners. If people want to check out, which I'm definitely one of them who want to check out your letter, find out more about you, or just connect, where can they go and what can they do?
Go to futuremoneytrends.com. That's futuremoneytrends.com. And if you go to the contact us page, those emails will get to me if you have a personal question. Otherwise, you can subscribe for free to our weekly Wealth Digest. And I wouldn't suggest anybody check out the paid members area. Why don't you read the newsletter for 6 months? It's got amazing content, whether you're free or paid. And then you can always decide to upgrade later.
Wicked. Well, I'll definitely be doing that after this, and just want to thank you again for all your time. It's been amazing.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Thanks for listening to the Youngpreneurs podcast. This was proudly brought to you by the Podcast Institute, the #1 training resource to take your business from chasing leads to leads chasing you, and from an absolute amateur to a full-blown authority. If you're looking to take your business to the next level, then a podcast is the obvious answer. You can get national and global exposure in a very fast time, and it's just exactly what I've done with this podcast. So if you want to find out more, get a checklist on how you can get started for under $60, and to find out more through a small training video that I've prepared for you all, then please check out passiveincomeyoung.com/podcast training.